Well, hello, hello. This is Rosa, RCG Creations. How are you doing? I'm bringing you close to the stove since most of it's going to be done here today. We're going to be making you a very simple, very traditional Hispanic meal called a Taco Casserole. Very easy. Doing this strictly from memory. Used to do this a lot. Remember, I'm just trying to make sure I'm in frame. What I've got here is a can of, I pressure can black beans, refried beans, pinto beans, sorry. And I've actually got three jars, and these were canned in October 2020. Actually, both of these were done. Pintos and the black beans. And I'm saving some of the whole beans, and I'm making some beef bouillon because I don't want to open a whole container when I just need a little bit of it. Now, this is the black beans. If you process any bean that's I didn't know this when I first did this way back in 2020, but I do now. When you process beans and if they're missing part of the skin, it's not a whole bean, it turns into mush. If you process only the whole bean and take out any yucky parts and the rocks and all that, it comes out whole. Okay? My beans all turned out good because I paid attention to them, but I didn't pay attention to the black beans. And so that was part of my fault. And part of it was also because I was using a number 10 can. And a number 10 can had a bunch of them that were broken, and I didn't want to waste them. As frugal Rosa as I am, because I know I'll be making them into refried beans. So that's what we're going to do. So hubby cooked the ground beef for me already and drained it. Now I've added some bacon grease. I saved my bacon grease. Now I'm going to turn my heat on. I'm going to let it get a little warm. I'm going to leave it just the way it is right there. Okay, and I've made my own beef bouillon. I didn't want to get a whole container, so I just made my own. This is what's nice when you do the powder, all the little cubes. You can make as much as you need because, let me see if it tells me on here how many cubes. Okay, you dissolve 1 bouillon cube in 1 cup of boiling water, then you stir it, and that equals 1 cup. But I didn't need a whole cup because this is a small batch. Because I'm just using my little small casserole dish because it's just for dinner and whatever little leftovers that we have for lunch tomorrow. But there's not going to be a bunch of extra. Okay, so as you can see, my bacon grease is starting to melt. So now I'm just going to stir all this in. Let me turn down my heat because I know I got it too high right now. Just going to stir that up a little bit. Now I'm going to season it. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder. And I'm just going to sprinkle based on the size that I'm making. Some minced onions. I wish if I had my way there'd be whole onions, but hubby don't like whole onions, so we're just going to go with the minced. Now we're going to stir this around, and we're going to let it simmer for a few minutes. And while this is simmering, here is my bouillon water, but I'm not going to add it in yet. Move this out of the way. I'm going to get myself another frying pan. And I'm going to add my ground beef to this. I'm going to use my same spoon I used for my beans. So this is just cooked, drained ground beef. You can use any kind of meat. You could even use chicken if you want chicken. Totally up to you, or don't even do the meat at all. Just use all the other stuff. Because it works the same way if you want to do a meatless one. Let me turn my heat up here. Right. And to this, I'm going to add my homemade taco seasoning mix. I made this back in June 22, this last year. And you just sprinkle as much as you need. And the normal one would be 1 tablespoon per 1 pound of meat. This is 2 pounds of meat. Now I'm going to use just a little bit of this bouillon, just to stir that around a little bit, because the meat has been drained. Okay, let me turn down this heat. It's still a little too hot. Okay, now I'm going to add my water. No, I'm going to do my bouillon, not water, bouillon, because I want this to have a lot of flavor. Now I'm just going to simmer that a little bit. And I'm going to turn the heat down to pretty much on the low, because I just want this to simmer just a little bit. Not a whole lot. I don't want it to cook. I just want to infuse the flavor of the garlic powder, the minced onion, and the bouillon liquid. Turn that down. Now I'm going to get in here and stir my taco meat. Yeah, you can see me. I think I might need to add a little bit more taco meat. Yep, I'm going to have to add a little bit more taco meat. Oh, and let me turn my oven on. Make sure I got my rack in here. 400. Because we're only going to bake it for like 5 to 10 minutes, because everything else is made with pre-cooked stuff, so all we're doing is melting the cheese. And if you don't want cheese, you can skip the cheese. But I'm sorry, you can't have taco without cheese. And then we're going to be adding the lettuce and tomato. All that's already been pre-chopped. There we go. Let me turn that down just a tad. I'm going to let that infuse. And if you want, you can put a lid over this thing, which I think I will, just so it simmers and lets the steam get in there and all of that with the seasoning for the flavoring of the taco meat. The taco seeds, I'm sorry, let the flavor of the taco seasoning get into all the meat. But it is called taco meat. It's called taco meat now. And so you want to stir it all around. You see there was a spot there that didn't get turned, didn't have seasonings on it. So I want to have it all seasoned. Now sorry about the have to have a fan, because this has to have a fan on. You don't have to, but it's really best for you if you do. Let all the steam and the smoke come out. Okay. That one's done for now. I'm going to get, this pan doesn't have a lid, this is just an individual pan that we bought. But this lid will be good enough. And I've turned it down, so I just want it to simmer. Now we're going to get back to the beans. We're going to add a little bit of liquid, not a whole lot. Let me get my masher. You can use any kind of masher you want, it's totally up to you. And I'm going to mash all the beans. And if you had a whole bunch of, like if you were doing a big old pot of this stuff, I would definitely be using my emulsion blender, because that job would go a lot faster. But I have to wait for this to simmer anyway, a good 5 minutes. And in that 5-minute time frame, this little amount of beans will get mashed up. Because I don't want to coat the casserole with a whole bunch of mashed refried beans, because we're going to have refried beans and whole beans in the casserole, because I like to bite into the bean. Now, some people add corn, some people add rice. You pretty much add any kind of vegetable you want to it. I prefer not to. That's just me. And hubby gets what I'm making. But he enjoys it, as long as it tastes good. But see how I'm practically done. It didn't take long at all to mash them up. I got like 3 more minutes on the taco meat, and we're ready to pull it in the dish and put it in the oven. Can't get any simpler than that. And also, if you wanted to bake all this ahead of time and put everything in a bowl, in a freezer container or a freezer baggie, whichever one you want to do it in, and I would put the meat in one baggie, put the refried beans or bake whole beans, or just wait to make it when you get ready to heat it up, and put it in another baggie, and then put everything together in the casserole dish, because you do need to lay, you need to crumble up some tortilla chips on the bottom, and then you put your meat on top, your beans on top, and your cheese on top. So it's all layered. But this is a definite win-win situation, especially if you have a larger family, is make a double batch of this. I just don't have any freezer space, so that's why I'm not doing it. I have no more freezer space. I have to hurry and get rid of a bunch of stuff that's in the freezer. So I'm just making enough for 2 meals, tonight's dinner and tomorrow's lunch. And I'm going to add just a little bit more of this broth, just so I can get a little bit more creamy, a little bit more runny. There we go. See how the texture is there now? There we go. Now let's do a quick little taste test. Make sure this is the time where you want to see if you need to season it any. I could definitely use a little bit more garlic powder. And I didn't salt and pepper it before, but I'm going to do it now. Because these are raw. Well, they were dry beans, not raw. Dry. Well, I guess that could be raw, but they were dry beans. This is where I pressure cans. And I did it with just pressure canning the beans, the dry beans, and water, nothing else. No other seasonings. I didn't put any other seasonings in there. Okay, so we're done with this masher. Let's get all those goodies out of there. And let's stir this up. And then we'll do a quick little taste test. And I still have this on low. Excuse me. Okay. Let's do a little taste test. I'm going to double dip my spoon since it's just me and hubby. Oh yeah, that's definitely, I could have used a little bit more salt, but it's definitely getting a lot better. And I think the heating it up, cooking it with that bacon grease, just adds more flavor to your beans. That's just my personal choice. That's how my mom did it. And her mom, and her mom. Oh yeah, that's what needed, a little bit more salt. Okay, we're trying to heat off of this one. That's done. Whoop, that's hot. Let me get a pot plate. pot holder, actually, is what I meant to say. I'm going to move all my goody stuff over here, and I'm not going to waste this broth. I'm just going to put it right in here. There's going to just a very little bit left. Now I'll put it in my dish. I can turn off the heat. Oh man, this smells so good. And I don't really need to taste it because I know it's going to taste good. Because we've had this several times. So here's a taste test. Oh yeah, that is some good stuff. Okay, everything's turned off. My oven should be about ready. Excuse the reach. I'm moving you over to my little island. And then here's my dish. You're right on the edge of my table. And I'm just using these chips, and these are the kind that are gluten-free, and they're lightly salted. And you just grab some and you crumble them up. And you can crumble it as fine as you want or big chunks. It's your personal preference. Make sure you start off with clean hands. And you want to put a full, solid, even layer of chips on the bottom. Okay? So I'm getting a whole bunch of these. Okay, you want to get it all over, smooth it around. Need some more chips. I don't like to have any glass showing when I make something like this. So I'm going to make sure I got plenty of chips. And because, if you notice in a minute, we didn't put anything overly liquidy. So these chips are not going to get overly soggy. They're still going to be crunchy. There we go. I think that's enough. Let me wipe my hands right quick. Alrighty, now I've got my... I don't need the chips, I can move them out of the way. I got a tiny little island here. Okay, you're still... I'm making sure you're still in frame. Oh, my oven's ready. Okay, I'm just gonna pour this over here on top. I'm gonna be, more than likely I will use the entire meat mixture. I could get another bigger spoon, but I'm being lazy. I don't want to. That's just another dish I gotta wash. Actually, I think I can pick this up now and pour it. And then we'll smooth it out. Yeah. Let me level that out before, because I can always just save this for another dish, or hubby can just take it with his lunch, and he has it as a side. Because actually that turned out pretty darn good. Okay, I could use a little bit more. This particular pan, we like it, but we didn't realize when it gets hot, the handle gets hot. So you need a handle holder, which is what this little Teflon thing is, but it does fall off. You gotta push it in a lot. So now I know, and here's a little tidbit. If you don't want to mess with stuff like this, make sure you read the label on the pan, the frying pan, or pan, whatever pan you get, to see if that handle gets hot. Because if it does, you'll need to get something like this to hold it, or put a pot holder or a towel, because it's very hot. As hot as the pan is, that handle is hot too. Okay, so that works out good. I'm not going to need it all, but there's a little bit left for hubby. Now I'm going to spread my bean mixture, refried beans, and I'm just going to drop it in bits and pieces all over. Alrighty, so that one's done. Let's smooth it. And if you want to, you can smooth it all out, but I'm not going to do too much smoothing on it. My rule is wherever it lands is where it lands, because we're all going to eat it. And hubby and I both like refried beans. Now, of course, if you've got somebody in the family who doesn't, only fill the half of it or part of it for the one who does enjoy the refried beans, and let the other person have the other part. Oh, I'll just put my spoon back. Put it in the dish. Now here's where I had my black beans right here. These are the pinto beans. See that? And I'm just going to, oh, I'm getting it all over my, I got to wash this now. Oh well, we're going to leave it there because it's already dirty. And I'm going to put all of these beans, and I'm going to concentrate these beans on this side, because I'm going to put a whole entire layer of beans. And here's where, if you want to do like corn, you would do one whole layer of beans, one whole layer of corn, or half and half, or mix it all up. But this makes for a really, especially when you have a clear glass dish like this one here, it really looks pretty, because you can see all the different layers. Let me just pour the rest of these. And then I'm going to smooth out all my beans. So that layer's done. Now all we got to do is get our layer of cheese. And sprinkle that on top, put it in the oven, and we're done. And we'll stick it in the oven at 400 degrees for about 5 to 10 minutes, just enough time to heat up. Melt the cheese and heat the beans. Oh, I forgot to heat the beans. Aw, man. I was supposed to heat them up. Okay, we're going to take it a little bit longer than 5 minutes. You know what? I'm going to stop right there. So I'm going to put this in the oven for 15 minutes. Take it out, add the cheese, and then bake it again so the cheese melts. Because it was my fault. I was supposed to have heated those whole beans. Okay, that was my fault there. So I'll bring you back when we come for the taste test. Okay? Okay, we are back. And let me show you. I went ahead and poured myself a little bit so I could do my taste test. But I wanted to show you what it looked like close up. There you go. See the little juices are in there. Now, I forgot to add this to the recipe, but I caught it while it was in the oven. You want to add 1 to 2 cups of beef broth, so it's not overly dry. But be careful, because if you put too much, then it gets really liquidy. And I don't like it to be too liquidy, because I like to have a little bit of crunch on the bottom of my shells. So I only added 1 cup because this is a small dish. And I put my salt, my lettuce and tomato, sprinkled my cheese on top. Look at that. And then here is the dish. There is the shells, the tortilla shells. They're on the bottom. Now let's do a little taste test. I don't care for sour cream, but I got this Mexican sour cream for hubby. We've never had it before. And we're going to do a taste test now. So we're going to get a little bit of lettuce, some whole beans, refried beans. They're all mixed up together. You can definitely taste the taco seasoning, for sure. You can taste the garlic powder. I don't taste the minced onions that much, but you can definitely taste where they're the refried beans, and then you can taste where there's the whole beans, which for me, to me, that just adds more flavor, more texture. So after you're done putting this in the oven, get a separate pot out and heat up your whole beans to heat them up. Excuse me, I'm sorry, before you put this in the oven. So while the meat's cooking and heating up, heat up the whole beans in a separate container, separate pot. I mean, you could, if you really wanted to, put the whole beans in with the taco meat mixture and heat it all at the same time. It wouldn't really hurt none at all because it's going to be all mixed up anyway. Unless you want to do the layer look. If you're going for the layer look, then you do it in layers. So, I'm sorry, I'm just dripping up a storm. And then definitely add, right before you put it in the oven, drizzle some beef broth or beef bouillon. Make your own bouillon like I did today with the bouillon cubes. And then sprinkle that all over the whole thing. Then put your layer of cheese on top and then bake it 5 to 10 minutes in a 400-degree oven. But then this, I got to do another taste test. I got my lettuce, got my tomato. I don't have to salt and pepper this at all because it's got enough seasoning in the taco mix. So, and if you want to cheat, which I'm not going to because I'm trying to stay on my prior program and I'm already cheating with this already. This is not, none of this really is a cheat. The cheat is the taco shells on the bottom. But do it like this. Put it all on a little tortilla chip. So, if you did put a little bit too much liquid, that's okay. It's still going to taste good. Just crumble up some chips on your plate. Then serve that on top. And those chips will be crunchy. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.